Good morning, kids, and today we're checking out a brand new video from Goju Center about Skar King's Kaiju killing weapon, and apparently how even Kong's axe has no chance of stopping it, or defending against it, or something. It just says his axe has no chance. So let's hop in and see what this weapon is.
Godzilla Kong will feature a duel between two of the most dexterous titans in the Monsterverse. On one end, the ape titan known for its superb leaping abilities, high intelligence, and weapon-wielding capabilities, Titanus Kong, King of Hollow Earth. Or so we thought. GXK brings forth a new adversary, possibly surpassing Kong in all of the mentioned attributes, a tyrant of larger proportions than Kong, ruling over an empire of blood. This is Skar King. But will Kong's weapons give him an edge? Will this gauntlet grant him an edge over Skar King's whiplash? In this episode, we will discuss the many advantages their weapons bring to the battlefield and find out whether or not Kong will be able to steal the title of King from his adversary. Coming up, Kong's weapons versus Skar King's whip-slash explained.
God, this
to
movie's
begin,
gonna be
we'll
epic.
quickly cover Kong's current weapon, the Battle Axe, which is comprised of a long bone, possibly a femur of another titan, and the dorsal plate of a Gojira specimen. This weapon, apart from serving as an axe, also possesses several abilities such as harnessing Hollow Earth energy and even atomic breath. While charged, this weapon is heated and capable of cutting through extremely hardened materials such as Mechagodzilla's titanium alloy. Even while not hardened, this weapon can pierce stone. But one of the things that sets this axe apart from the weaponry used in the past by Kong is the fact that weapons such as these can inflict high piercing power thanks to its mechanics. In close combat, battle axes have always been notorious for their ability to inflict deep wounds thanks to the weight of the blade in comparison with the lighter handle. This counterweight of sorts multiplies the force of the arm swing. All of this energy will now be inflicted on the very small surface area of an axe, the blade's edge. With Kong's axe, however, this serves not only as a blade, but also a pickaxe of sorts, since the surface area of these tips is much smaller than that of a bladed edge. The result, deep, fatal wounds if hit in the correct area. That's if Kong manages to connect. As lethal as these weapons sound, there are huge drawbacks with using a battle axe. First off, because of the weighted blade, the result of missing a target is the weight of the blade pulling the wielder down, exposing the combatant to attack from the opponent. Much more likely against an agile foe, and it just so happens that Kong will likely face just that. Now, under what circumstance will Kong use this gauntlet, and how will this give Kong the edge?
We'll be right back to figure out how. And we're back talking about the Beast Glove. Strange name. Also, where did he get it?
Apparatus seems to serve two purposes,
so many questions.
For offense and as a brace of sorts. Recall that in this clip we witness an already evolved Godzilla alongside a Kong with this glove, suggesting that Kong 1. Lost the axe, and 2. Also used this apparatus as an upgrade. Kong possibly lost this axe against Skar King and was maybe injured in the act, but how? What about Skar King made Kong lose his weapon and possibly get handicapped? Skar King, as we've seen him so far, is possibly much taller than Kong. Not necessarily more robust, but given his time in the Hollow Earth, this guy probably belongs to a battle-hardened species whose way of life is combat. Against a more powerful and experienced foe, it is no secret that Kong will already be at a huge disadvantage against Skar King and his kind. This gets pushed further with the presence of this weapon, a whip. Officially referred to as a whip slash, this word itself might give us further clues as to how this weapon is actually used. Note that this is not a whip lash, which by definition is the flexible part of the whip. But why does Skar King wield a whip and not any other weapon? There are many reasons for this. The description for Skar King in many of the recently revealed merchandise states that this guy rules over a fiery kingdom wielding this whip. In the trailer, we witnessed many great ape titans possibly belonging to Kong's species being held, maybe against their will, by Skar King and his kind. This whip of sorts may indicate that Skar King uses this as a tool also, a tool which can be used to subjugate other titans. Whips throughout time have been a symbol of subjugation and forced servitude under tyrannical force, with the mentioned weapon used to beat down on insubordinate individuals, used as a tool for punishment or even executions. But are whips used as weapons? They can be, but the use of whips is reserved for those who are extremely dexterous with lots of practice, which are attributes of Skar King. Whips in combat are rarely used, and it takes a really practiced arm and hand to use one with purpose.
Oh yeah,
the lash section of the whip forms a U-shape once whipped. This U-shape travels down the length of the whip until it gets to this very small tip. What makes the cracking sound is just the tip. Why? Because it moves so fast that it surpasses the sound barrier. This phenomenon is known as conservation of energy. A whip with a weighted tip instead of a loose string will allow this weapon to not only strike victims and injure them, but also latch on to things. In this case, weapons, limbs, or even the neck of some opponents. That's assuming this whip is shaped like this, thicker on the handle and thinner on the striking end. But if we look closely, Skar King's whip slash seems to be built a lot differently.
It's almost like a uniform shape from the head to the tail.
Does this affect combat? Let's find out.
Like a snake.
Enjoying this episode? Please don't forget to subscribe and check out our newly released merch series inspired by GXK. Links below. The physics between these two different whip shapes will vary.
Whoa, that for some reason just got a little loud.
A lot thanks to two key differences, their composition and the obvious weighted tip. Skar King's whip seems to be composed of a long serpentine vertebrate skeleton, perhaps belonging to a warbat or another long reptile. This is fastened together by either ligaments that are preserved within the vertebrae or by some sort of roping fashioned by this great ape. The result is a flexible whip-like tool capable of transferring energy similar to these whips. The key difference, however, is this section of the weapon, a titan's jaw. This could be either that of a warbat, given the presence of these two fangs on the bottom jaw, or the same jawbone from an animal of this unknown species. The point is that unlike your traditional whip, all the kinetic energy transferred down this whip will now be transferred to this jawbone, not a small tip. This causes a totally different type of damage. The business end of a regular whip is a very small counterweight, or something as thin as a string. A proficient wielder can accurately take out something as small as an eye, or simply lacerate with the tip. But this whip now has a skull. And Skar King merch images do confirm where this weapon is gripped from, revealing that this is indeed that striking part of the weapon. Once whipped, this kinetic energy will most likely reach these fangs. If these land on a fleshy surface, they will most definitely cut. But there's more to this particular jawbone. If this is indeed a warbat, this whip may do more than just cut, but also pierce armor.
Oop, hold on, we'll be right back. And we're back.
Why?
Go ahead.
Warbats are known to have fangs that can pierce through armored vehicles, meaning that this weapon could be lethal if it lands on the right area, such as the head of another kaiju. Who knows how many titans have met their demise at the end of this weapon? This brings us back to Kong, who will most definitely be introduced to Skar King's whip slash. In a confrontation between Kong and Skar King, one of the most important things to consider is reach. Skar King arguably has longer reach already thanks to his longer arms and possibly taller stature. This whip slash makes things even more difficult, making Kong unable to reach Skar King unless he throws his weapon and in the act disarms himself. A common counter against a combatant holding a whip is disarming him by allowing the whip to wrap around the arm and pulling back. Here, the mechanics of this weapon make it difficult to allow that without potentially injuring yourself first, thanks to the fanged jaw at the tip. This jaw, and in this case a weighted tip, will make it easier for this to wrap around objects, potentially disarming Kong. So here's where Kong may possibly lose his weapon and get injured. After all, this glove is seen to be on Kong's right hand, which is his arm of choice when wielding the axe. In the film, Kong will likely lose his weapon, get injured, and require some sort of help. This introduces us to the Beast Glove. The acronym BEAST stands for Bioenhanced Anatomic Seismic Thunder Glove.
Oh,
There's
that is
a lot
actually
to unpack
epic.
here, but to begin this weapon breakdown, we'll begin with the bioenhanced part. Bioenhancement implies that this glove will be aided by Kong himself, enhancing his earth-shattering strength and making each impact even more powerful. Anatomic
Yes.
probably refers to the mechanization of Kong's arm thanks to this glove. Again, if Kong did indeed get this arm injured, this glove serves as an anatomical aid. Fastened
Like a
around the
cast.
forearm, wrist, and secured around each tip of the finger, these brass knuckles basically harden the striking end of the clenched fist. So instead of getting hit by a mixture of skin, flesh, and bone, this beast glove removes any soft tissue from the equation, making this an even more critical hit.
Pure
But this
steel.
weapon just gets more interesting. The S and T of this acronym stand for Seismic Thunder. If these extra hard punches weren't enough, a glove capable of amplifying impact force to something that can shake the ground violently will most definitely cause some pretty serious damage to a kaiju like Skar King.
Oh,
In fact,
yes.
some of the figure descriptions describing this beast glove claim that this weapon inflicts hits similar to meteor impacts with every punch. Not to mention any possible electrical element that may transfer deadly amounts of electric shocks to the victim. So, will this weapon be enough to neutralize Skar King's whip slash? Unfortunately, this weapon still does not solve the matter of having less reach than the whip.
God, this
However,
movie's
this
gonna be
arm will
awesome.
now be armored enough to possibly aid in catching the end of this whip without incurring any damage this time. Note that Kong is no stranger to ball and chain type weaponry. In fact, he was pretty good at using flexible weighted weapons back when he was a teenager.
Oh, yeah, I
Maybe
remember that.
Kong has a few
Love that
lessons to
movie.
teach Skar King
It's all
after
good.
all. Note that this may not be all Skar King's whip can do. Perhaps there's another kaiju that Skar King controls with this whip. Something about this whip seems to be lacking. We'll cover this unknown secret in a later episode and discuss a new kaiju that may be involved with this missing part. Subscribe to not miss any more episodes on GXK and your favorite kaiju.
You heard
See
'em,
you in the
folks.
next episode.
Alright folks, that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below. And I'll see you folks next time when we flick on. Remember to subscribe and stay tuned for next time. This is Fox signing out. Peace.